So now I'll put another hat on. I have many hats, as you all know. I'd like to introduce Sayeed and Marc by the following. All of us have spent a lot of time on RDA International, but there's also RDA activities in member countries. And Sayeed and Marc and I and many other people represent, Bill and Rebecca and Beth represent RDA US as well. And so RDA US is really happy to host our second plenary, and Sayeed and Marc are going to give you all of the relevant details. So we really look forward to having you in the US. Now I know, given the after-dinner speakers and the palace receptions and all of that, we're going to have this at the White House with Obama giving our after-dinner remarks. So that will be Sayeed's and our job to do that. That was a joke. The Tibbetts too.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm Sayeed Choudhury from Johns Hopkins University. I know it's the end of a very engaging but tiring 3 days, so Marc and I will be brief. We are here to talk about the second plenary, as you can see from the slide up here. It will be in Washington, D.C. on September 16th to 18th in 2013 at the National Academies in Washington, D.C. But before we talk about the second plenary, I'd like to take a little bit of a look back on the first in terms of acknowledging some people. So at dinner, Leif mentioned the Secretariat and the volunteers. If I recall correctly, he did not mention the council and the steering group, which I would like to do. So please let's thank them as well. And then I know he has some concluding comments to make, but I would like to recognize Leif particularly and uniquely. I think he's done a masterful job with this conference, not only setting the bar high for the plenary, but responding to it with a grace and a patience and a humor that I think is quite unique. So please, let's thank Leif. So this is the auditorium at the National Academies. We're just trying to give you a sense of what kind of a venue it is, what kind of a setting it can be. Paul Euler from the National Academies, of course, we thank for this opportunity, tells me that it seats about 800 people. If you remember Peter's comments about exponential growth, going from 10 to 100 to 1,000, he didn't tell us the timing for that, but if we think the second plenary, we're not that far from 1,000. It does make me worried about the third plenary, who has to find a 10,000-seat auditorium somewhere, but we'll let them deal with that. Stadium. So definitely want to thank NSF and NIST for the funding for this second plenary. And we wanted to highlight a few aspects of the second plenary. Obviously, this is the very beginning of the process. We've gotten a lot of good feedback throughout the plenary, and there is the survey that Kevin mentioned earlier. Please do fill that out. But a few ideas we just want to plant in your minds for consideration and actually for further discussion as we do the planning. So there is a very important role for this technical advisory board, and we anticipate that it will be in place by the second plenary. So it will in some sense be perhaps the first formal opportunity to interact with this particular group. But we do want people to think about that in the interim, and we do want that to be a very important part of this meeting. And then I really appreciated Ross's comments earlier this morning at the first panel about culture and how these different organizations, which could become partners for RDA perhaps, have different cultures. And simplistically, IETF seems to have more of an engineering type of culture. And he used the word researchers, or he said, RDA is about researchers. And I think that's true, but I also think RDA may be struggling, or maybe it's a good struggle, has different cultures, or multiple cultures. And I think we'll have to think about that in every aspect of RDA, but also in terms of what kind of a meeting we want to have, what kind of a plenary we want to have. So I would ask that you think about this as we put together our plans for the second plenary. And there are a few comments that Marc wants to make specifically about balance between different aspects and different groups.
Thanks, Sayeed. And I want to echo my thanks to Leif as well. He's given us a hard act to follow. I think I'm up here just so you can put a face to the name, because a lot of you will probably be hearing from me as we start putting this thing together. I was also grateful to hear from Bill, because he was echoing what we thought. We really need to have more emphasis on the working groups. We heard that, we definitely heard that here, that we need more time for actual work. And I think as we go into the second plenary, we're getting into that. So that's definitely appropriate. And then how we're going to balance plenary sessions with interest groups and the working groups. I think not only was there not enough time for working groups, but there were maybe too many concurrent parallel sessions. I knew I felt pulled in many directions myself, and I'm not even on any of the working groups. So we're going to try and address that. But I guess my key plea being up here is for your feedback. What would make an effective meeting? What did you like about this meeting? What would be better in the next meeting? So I put something up on the forum requesting your feedback, but also I want to note that there's a survey that's been put out by ICORDI. It's on the main webpage of the RD Alliance site, so please fill that out. We'll be looking at that for guidance and planning the second plenary as well. But then if you do have specific ideas, please put them up on the forum. There's a place for that. And that's to think about all that I had to say, and I look forward to seeing you all in 6 months in Washington.
So once again, September 16th to 18th, Washington, D.C., and I will turn it over to Leif.